Most people assume that you need to be rich to buy a cash flowing business, like seven figures rich in the bank, maybe with a private jet. And honestly, that feels responsible. It feels smart. But here's the quiet problem, and it keeps normal people that are disciplined completely out of the game. If you've ever thought, I make decent money, but I'm not wealthy enough to buy a business, you're not crazy, but there's an approach here that smart people take that you need to consider. And that's what most people believe. So today I'm going to show you exactly what you can do to get into a cash flowing business, even if you don't have a lot of money. I'm Trent Lee. I'm the number one business broker in the country, and I've personally closed over 600 transactions. I make these videos because I see what works, I see what fails, and more importantly, I see what quietly hurts people after the deal closes that they didn't know before. My goal is simple. I don't want you learning this stuff the hard way. Here's what I want to show you today. I'm going to break it down so you can see the exact financial model that serious buyers actually use to acquire cash flowing businesses without needing to be wealthy first. That's not the whole point, right? You buy a business so you can then become wealthy. I'm going to give you a simple framework that I call the 2020 rule. I'll walk you through it with real math at three different income levels and be completely honest about when this works and when it doesn't. By the end of the video, you're going to have a clear picture of whether buying a business is actually within reach for you right now or what it will take to eventually get there. So let's slow down first and let me give you the mental model. The fantasy is this: you need millions in cash to buy a business. But the reality is different. Most small businesses in America honestly sell for about 2 to 3 times their annual net profit, their adjusted earnings. And banks will lend on those type of deals if the numbers make sense. So here's the key that you need to understand. Businesses are financed like houses. You don't walk into a real estate deal and hand someone the full purchase price in all cash. You put a down payment or you put a percentage down. The banks finance the rest and the assets pay for itself over time. Business acquisitions work the same way. So here's the mental model I want you to walk away with first. As I mentioned, I call it the 2020 rule. 20% saved, 20% down. That's the whole framework. And that single shift in thinking changes everything about how to look into buying a business. All right, let me show you why this matters because this is where most people just assume instead of actually doing the correct actual math. So let's use a simple example. Say a business produces $100,000 in true owner cash flow per year. At a three times multiple, that business sells for around $300,000. If you were to put 20% down, that's $60,000. The bank finances the remaining $240,000. Now let's look at the loan payment. Over a 10-year SBA loan at roughly 10% interest, that changes over time. But at a 10% interest rate for this example, your annual payments on $240,000 are around $39,000 per year. The business produces $100,000 in profit. So you pay the bank $39,000 a year, you have $61,000 left before taxes, and that's real, actual cash flow hitting your pocket from the business that you didn't pay in full for. You just put a percentage down. And you know what's crazy? Most people never run the math. They see the $300,000 price tag and immediately assume, I don't have that much money, I can't finance it. And a lot of people stay out of the game. But the price is almost irrelevant. What matters is the cash flow after debt. And that's such an important concept here. That's the number that actually changes your life. So let's make this a little bit more personal. Let me walk you through how the 2020 rule applies at three different income levels because the strategy actually shifts depending on where you are right now as far as your own income level and the amount of savings you have. First, let's say you earn around $50,000 a year, and over time you've saved $10,000. You're probably looking at a business in the $50,000 to $75,000 range. We're talking about vending routes, small service businesses, maybe a single location cleaning company. It's not glamorous, I know. It's boring, but it's often better. And here's the part that most people completely miss at this income level. You don't quit your job. You buy something that adds $20,000, $30,000 in additional income on top of what you're already making. And you start to stack income streams. That's the move if you're at that level. Now let's move to someone earning around $500,000 per year with $100,000 or more saved. That opens the door to businesses that are in the four to $600,000 range. Businesses that often produce $150,000, $200,000 in cash flow. Now we're talking about potentially replacing your income entirely or offsetting it or supplementing it, keeping the same high paying job that you already have, but building a strong second stream. Maybe there's a family member, maybe there's a manager that can help you run it. It's a different strategy, but the same 2020 rule applies underneath it. Now, what happens if you're making more than that, $1 million per year in income? Those buyers are looking at multi-million dollar transactions, often management run. They're lower relative yields sometimes, but they're massive in scale and they have significant asset value being built over time because they're much bigger businesses. Here's the thing though. Fantasy says income level determines the outcome. The reality says disciplined determines the deal. I've seen high income earners blow acquisitions, and I've seen $50,000 a year earners build real wealth through small businesses, through stacking income. And they just take it one step at a time. They stack their income and then they do it again and they do it again and they level up. The income level just determines where you're starting, what deal size you're looking at, not whether you can actually play the game. Now, let me give you a real pattern I see play out. A buyer making around $100,000 per year saved $40,000. They bought a landscaping business for $200,000. It produced around $80,000 in annual cash flow. After debt payments, they were clearing around $45,000 per year. Within 2 years, they grew that same business to $120,000 in cash flow. That deal changed their financial life, not because it was flashy, not because it was complex or sexy, but because it was stable. There was no drama. It was just math. And they used the savings they did have to buy an appropriate sized business to income stack and then to grow that income. And that income from the business is now more than what they were making on their day job. Now, look, I have to be straight with you here because too many people skip this part. When you use SBA financing, you're personally guaranteeing that loan. That means if the business fails, the bank can come after you, your credit, your savings, potentially your home equity if you have any. That's a real consequence, and you need to get into this with eyes wide open. So before you get excited about a deal, ask yourself these questions honestly. Can your family handle the income swing? Do you have 6 months of reserves sitting aside? Do you have 6 months of reserves sitting outside the business, separate from your down payment? Is your spouse or partner fully on board to help if late nights go long and there's weekends that you're working? And most importantly, are you buying true cash flow or are you buying an ego just to get into the business and say you have business ownership? The key is to buy an appropriate size business that has the right cash flow after servicing the debt. So, when does this strategy actually work? It works when the business has consistent historical cash flow, not projections, not potential, actual documented history. I don't care if the seller says, if only I worked harder, or if only I advertised more, or whatever their excuse happens to be. You're basing your business decision to buy that business based on historical cash flow, not their projections and their pipe dream. And it only works when the buyer has reserves and isn't stretching so thin that one slow month breaks everything. So when does it fail? It fails when someone overpays because they fell in love with the idea of owning a business. It fails when someone ignores seasonality in the numbers. It fails when someone assumes growth instead of earning it, when someone's buying a business because they think it has potential and they think they can pay for it in the future rather than vetting those numbers based on historical performance. For new buyers, I say focus on simple service businesses with reoccurring revenue, low customer concentration, Don't chase complex early on. For experienced operators, focus on systems and scalability. Can you add a manager, add trucks, expand the territory? Different experience levels, but the same underlying decisions. All right, let me leave you with one question. And this is really a deal filter that I want you to actually write down and use. It's one simple question. After the debt, will the business still pay me fairly for my time and my risk? If the answer is no, it's not the right deal. Move on. It doesn't matter how exciting it looks on paper. It doesn't matter how much you like the industry or like the seller or their dream that they've sold you on and how much potential the business has. That one question alone can save you from years of stress and a lot of money. So here's the challenge for you in the next 48 hours. I want you to pick one business type, just one, that fits your income level based on what we've talked about today. Go to any of the sites, Biz Buy Sell or anything like that. Find 3 listings in that category and run the simple 2020 rule math on each one. You don't need to overthink it. Just do the math and see what happens and what comes back. Then drop what you found in the comments. I genuinely respond to them and read them. And if you're interested, I have a deal analyzer calculator that's totally free. If you just reach out to me, I'll send it to you. That way you can run the 2020 rule all online, plug in the numbers, and it will instantly tell you if the business is a good fit for you based on your size and the price that you're paying. So, if this gives you a clear picture of what's actually possible, hit subscribe because we're going much deeper on all of this. I put out videos specifically designed to help buyers and sellers avoid the expensive mistakes that I see happen every single week from buyers who aren't educated. And if you want to go even deeper, I have a free school community with over 30 hours of step by step education on how to find, analyze, and buy a small business. It's completely free. The link is in the description. So come join us if that is a good fit. Just remember, you don't need to be rich. You need a clear math and calm decisions. And I'll see you in the next video.